Keep your arms in the vehicle at all times. Wrestle Talk begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, Wrestle Talk fans and family? Joe Lance here once again for another edition of Wrestle Talk. It is Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. That means one thing only. If you were listening to the sound of my voice, you have made a smart decision. And for that, we thank you. Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, we have so much going on tonight. We got Dylan Highley coming on. We got Leo D coming on. We got the High Spots, the Shooting Shop, the Wrestle Talk Podcast, Game Show Challenge, the Fantasy Wrestling segment, the Snippets of Truth. Speaking about the Fantasy Wrestling segment, what's going on with Alexander Jones? Is he going to get out of this funk? Or does he just not have it in him anymore? I guess we're going to find out more on that tonight in the Fantasy Wrestling segment. But ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's get in the man, the myth, the legend, the man that needs no introduction. My co-host, the man, the myth, the Night Owl.
¿Qué pasa, qué pasa, qué pasa, loyal members of the Wrestle Talk family? Welcome to episode 226, Pick Up Sticks. Wow, I cannot believe we are here on the show, before the show, to close out 2018. Jonesy, I've not been this excited for a show in a very long time, man. You said it. We're talking to my man Dylan Highley from WLW, a guy who's got a phenomenal story, a guy who's truly living his dream. He'll join us here in about 25 minutes. And then one of my close personal friends in the pro wrestling business, a guy that I've seen pretty much since the first day he stepped foot in the squared circle, a guy who's gone out to the East Coast, come back to the Midwest, and is now making a name for himself like never before. That's right, man. Leo D is going to be joining us in the second hour, man. But before we get to any of that, Jonesy, I know you've been a little bit under the weather. I know things haven't really been going your way, bro. How are you feeling tonight, bro?
Oh, I'm doing good tonight. Hopefully I don't have any more coughing fits like I did last week. I definitely apologize if I coughed some on the air. But other than that, I'm doing great. It's the week before Christmas. Christmas is next week. Santa Claus is coming. I can only hope that I get my Christmas gift, and that is for Curtis Wilde, Rick Maverick, and Ozzy Gallagher to all be heavyweight champions at the same time.
Jeez Louise, dude, are we gonna start off like this? I mean, Jonesy, I know I wasn't super nice to you last week, and I apologize for that. I think you kind of deserved a little bit of a tongue lashing. But now you're going to kick this week off with that same nonsense. Come on, man. Stop it.
You know about how big of a fan I am of Curtis Wilde, Ozzy Gallagher, and Rick Maverick. You know this.
Yes, I know your affinity. I know your affinity for those bums, and I really honestly don't understand it, bro. I don't get it. What is your obsession with subpar talent? I just don't get it. And not only is this subpar talent, we're talking about guys that are known to cheat on a regular basis. I mean, I remember Ozzy Gallagher attacking Sadie Blaze backstage for no reason, 100% unprovoked. I mean, I don't get it. You know what? I agree with Susie Haas. I agree with Susie Haas. You're going to get coal in your stocking this Christmas, Jonesy.
Last year, when I went to the Universe Mania, I got a Ozzy Gallagher shirt. You gave me an Ozzy Gallagher shirt, and you know that I still have not worn that shirt. I have that shirt up in my closet because I don't feel that I'm worthy enough to wear that shirt.
Well, I have a confession to make. I gave you that shirt only because it was no longer fit to serve as the, let's just say, the bed inside my dog's kennel, which she frequently pees in.
Hey.
So.
No.
Facts, yo, facts. All right. Well, listen, Jonesy, you know what we're not doing today that we've been doing over the last couple of weeks, and I'm very grateful for? Do you know what that is?
What's that?
Dude, no 10-bell salute.
No 10 bells salute. I mean, I'm sure I can find somebody to do a 10 bells.
No, stop it.
But, you know, yeah.
Stop it. I'm sure somebody died, okay? But I guess what I'm trying to say is that at least in the world of professional wrestling, nobody died, with the exception of Baron Corbin and his career.
Got him.
We are on a roll today, boy.
Know who did pass away recently?
Who?
Larry the Axe Hennig. Kurt Hennig's father.
Wait, was that last week or the week before? Because I remember seeing something like that.
It was last week, if I'm not mistaken.
And you know what, bro?
See?
We got to do it. You're right, Jonesy. I apologize, man. I'm just so ahead of myself. So excited for High Spots today. So excited to see my folks on the Facebook Live sharing this broadcast. Share it to your personal pages or any wrestling pages. So let's go ahead and do that, man. Let's go ahead and hit the 10-bell salute for Larry the Axe Hennig, man, father of Curtis Axel and Mr. Perfect, man. Go ahead and remove your caps, guys, as we honor a legend that is no longer with us in the world of pro wrestling. Hit that 10-bell salute, Jimmy. All right, and there you have it, the 10-bell salute. Of course, I'm getting a phone call right now. Jeez Louise, man. All right, well, I'll have to address that later on because we're doing Wrestle Talk right now. So, Jonesy, now that that's out of the way, bro, let me tell you something, man. I know this show is going to be absolutely off the chain. I know we got a lot of stuff to cover during the High Spot segment. So we want to encourage everybody who's tuning in live right now to dial that number, and it is 657-383-1521. And in the case of dialing that number, you get to join us live and talk about anything and everything in the world of pro wrestling. That is what the High Spot segment is all about. We're going to be getting into that in just a moment. We would love it if you would join us. But before we get there, we got to do what we always do about this time, ladies and gentlemen. And that's pay homage to the greatest country on God's green earth. So put your hands over your hearts and help me commemorate, again, the greatest country on God's green earth. And that's America, damn it.
Oh, say, can you see? And the rocket red flag. Uh-oh. I'll make up for it now. For the land of the free.
Woo!
Every single time.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, listen, we're going to get into high spots, Jonesy, and I'll let you kick it off. But I did want to encourage everybody to take a moment after tonight's show and head on over to Everything Combat on YouTube. Our homies, Pat Miletich, UFC Hall of Famer, and one of the best dudes all around and huge supporter and member of the Wrestle Talk family, Jay Hollywood, as they welcomed in none other than Controversy Creates Cash himself, Eric Bischoff. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Eric freaking Bischoff was on Everything Combat with Jeff Wilson and Pat Miletich. As soon as Wrestle Talk is over, swing your stinking asses over to YouTube and make sure you look them up, give their page a follow, subscribe to that channel. That was an absolutely phenomenal opportunity for them, and they absolutely, from what I hear, have hit it out of the park. I haven't heard the interview just yet, but I will be providing feedback for you guys next week when I get a chance to hear it, and I'd love to be able to have a conversation with you guys about it once you guys hear it as well. So be sure to go over to Everything Combat on YouTube and give our boys Pat and Jeff lots and lots of love. That, geez Louise, I'm sure popular. That said, Jonesy, I know we got a lot to cover tonight during the Hotspot segment, man. We want to get the callers lined up and in on the show, but I want to know, what do you want to start with tonight, man?
So before we do anything, we have to do this. Intern Timmy.
Earthlings, we have now taken over your radio.
I hit 'em high, hit 'em high, hit 'em high. If you hit 'em low, hit 'em low. The fight got no game. I'm breaking your hot frame, coming through like a train.
Can't do the high spots without the intro song. But I guess that the one thing we can talk about starting off is this whole change of the WWE that they've got going. No more general managers. Paige has been removed as general manager. Corbin Slater's been removed. I guess that the McMahons are back on Mondays and Tuesday nights, running the show again. You know, they said they're going to bring in all these brand new faces and championships. And, you know, some people welcomed it. Some people said that it's the same old thing. You know, for me, it was the first episode, so, you know, they kind of got to work their way into adding in all of the new things. You know, but the biggest thing that they said is that the fans are the authority now. So, of course, now on Facebook, you've got people saying, I, as the authority, say that Becky Lynch is now the women's champion. And some people say that since they're the authority, that they're stripping Brock Lesnar of the championship. And what did you think about the changes that the WWE has made recently?
Well, you know what? I am going to acknowledge this. I am going to acknowledge that they acknowledged that there's a problem. And the last time I think that we saw them do something like this, I'm going to arcing all the way back to the Attitude Era, when they actually started to acknowledge that there was some legitimate competition down in Atlanta in WCW. That was the beginning of what people now refer to as the Monday Night Wars, okay? So I think that it's always encouraging where you can come out and tell your audience, hey, you know what? We know that we're not where we need to be, okay? And so to me, it's extremely encouraging to hear and see that they are willing to acknowledge that they are not where they need to be. Now, have I seen anything since that announcement 2 days ago that makes me feel like things are going to be different? Well, yes and no. Okay, so I say yes because we've got the McMahons back. This company has gotten so big that they can't even really spare the time to be on camera as characters on a regular basis because they're so busy growing the building, the business upward. But I think in a lot of ways they have failed to grow it outward. Okay, and when I say outward, I mean reconnecting and staying connected with the core audience. Okay, they're building upwards with new fans, younger fans, and things of that sort, fans from across the globe in different countries. But I think they're forgetting their core fan base. It's almost like if you go and you get a hamburger and the patty's okay, but they add lettuce and mayonnaise and mustard and pickles and, you know, salt, pepper, and all this other stuff, but the patty never improves. So I think we've gotten to the point where they can no longer continue to stack all these condiments on the product. They need to go back and make sure that the meat that we're all craving for as hardcore wrestling fans is there. And I think you're going to start to see more of that in them bringing in guys like Mustafa Ali, them kind of, you know, ushering EC3 fairly quickly through NXT and bringing him up to the main roster. So I am going to stand back and sit back and watch and see how all this plays out, because I'm optimistic and think that they've been doing it right for all these years. They're eventually going to figure it out. But ultimately at this moment, okay, we've not really seen anything significant other than the McMahon showing up and some hints of what might come with some of the newer talent being brought up maybe a little bit quicker. It is encouraging, though, but listen, that's just one man's opinion. That's just the Night Owl's opinion. Jonesy, I want to know what you think, but more importantly, I want to know what the callers think. Again, guys, we want you guys to be engaged. We want to talk to you about this topic and really anything else you guys want to talk about, okay? So I'm going to post the number again on the Facebook Live feed, and if you're listening to this on the replay, we love you all the same. Thank you for being here. Yes. Jonesy, go ahead and take it away, man, and let's jump into a couple of callers. I see the phone lines are already blowing up.
Yes, sir. They are definitely all blowing up, and yeah, you know, I think it's gonna take a little bit of time, but yeah, you know, I don't really want to spoil anything, but you know, they filmed their SmackDown last night's episode for the Christmas episode, and there's only one thing that I can say about that, and I'm not trying to spoil anything, but
it's Rusev Day. It's Rusev Day.
Jonesy.
That's all I'm gonna
go. Anybody who hasn't been sleeping under a rock for the last year and a half knows exactly what. I'm not going to spell it out for you guys on the off chance that you don't know what Jonesy's referring to, but let's just say that championships are going to be switching hands next week. And I actually want to talk about the pre-taping because a lot of people are upset about it, but I think that the WWE is extremely justified in pre-taping next week's show. And we'll get into that in just a second. But first, let's bring on another loyal member of the Wrestle Talk family who actually joined us a few weeks ago, and he loved a conversation with us so much that he recorded it on his phone and then blasted it all over social media. He was so happy about the way that we addressed him in his situation that he did that, and he's decided to call back tonight. And I believe we have another unidentified caller. Intern Timmy, why don't you go ahead and check on that? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show, our buddy, our amigo, Brandon, the franchise Buck.
Renee, so good to hear your voice. And Joe, welcome back to the pod, my brother.
Yeah, that dude's been sicker than a dog. But Brandon, enough about me and Jonesy, man. You hear what we're talking about. I'm sure you got a lot on your mind, man. Let's hear it.
You know, I got a chance finally after my work schedule went on. I finally got to tune in to Monday. And, yeah, just like everybody else, you know, when you hear that Vince McMahon's going to open up the show, you get excited, you know, whether you like the product or you don't. I mean, it's Vince McMahon. You know, you got to show props to the man. And as soon as him and Steph and Triple H and Shane all announced that they were going to be taking over the show, I was intrigued. I had that dog, you know, winded up ears look. Like, okay, let's see what they have to say. And unfortunately, I wish it was a little bit more lived out than like the 5-10 minutes that they had on TV. But the fact of the matter is, you know, just hearing that they completely understand, if they haven't already, that they completely understand that we are sick and tired of the same song and dance. There's only I can't, and you know this just as much as I do, there's only so many times you see John Cena versus Randy Orton, especially after the title versus title match, and then you see more and more and more. Edge and John Cena. Daniel, well, let's be up to date here. So Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. That is a beautiful and special match, but they use it so much that it becomes stale and it's not fun anymore. AJ versus Shinsuke Nakamura, et cetera, et cetera. So now maybe we can see some fine tuning in it, especially since, you know, SmackDown's going to Fox and they're doing their thing and Raw is still doing their thing and yada yada. Hopefully we can see something different.
Well, you know what? I think we're all hoping for the same thing, Brandon. The question is how quickly will this change come? And if you could make any suggestions about the changes that they should make, what would those suggestions be?
Well, the fact of the matter is, it's just like, you know, I think we're going to see something come the beginning of January, because that gives it enough time for a very slow medium burn, if you will. You know, we're prepping, hey, we're bringing in new stars from NXT and this and that and yada, 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 and, you know, building and whatnot. Now, what you could have gotten was, yeah, let's bring in Aleister Black. Let's bring in Johnny Gargano. Let's bring in Tommaso Ciampa, yada, yada, yada. But then it's just like, okay, wait a minute. Now, we have some guys like Lars and Lacey Evans and so forth, everybody else that they named off. And it's just like, okay, let's give these guys a chance. It'd be the same difference as like Zack Ryder going for a title push, which he's done with the IC belt and he's done with the United States Championship belt.
Right.
So let's just see where this goes. But, you know, also in the same sense, the generic fan would expect like the high names to come by from NXT, which they rightfully deserve, but also in the same sense, even the not so let's just say the mid-carders of NXT.
Like Lars Sullivan.
Spot too, just like everybody else.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So what would I suggest? I would suggest doing a happy medium. Let's get the mid-carders and the high spots from NXT. Let's bring in the brand new stuff, like what they're doing with Mustafa Ali, with Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. That's
good idea.
Phenomenal, because it kind of reminds me of when John Cena was the United States champion. He introduced stars like Kevin Owens and AJ Styles. And
that was cool.
And yada yada yada. And it was just like, holy crap, these guys can go, you know. And obviously with Mustafa Ali, he obviously has enough respect and enough talent to take on Daniel Bryan, take on AJ Styles. So let's do something like that to get people, for the underdog, to be intrigued with the main carders, kind of like with James Ellsworth with AJ Styles. Everybody popped for that super kick because they knew that was his finisher when they did research on him. Let's just do stuff like that and keep it just guessing game. I mean, nobody expects anybody to win, which nobody expected Mustafa to beat AJ Styles. But the fact of the matter is, if you keep that guessing game going, that is what's going to create those ratings, at least in my opinion.
Well, you know what, Brandon? I absolutely have to agree. And I think you're hitting on a point that I want to hit on really quickly before we move on to the next caller. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you guys who are fans of the show, you know how much we love us some Bones. Bones is actually coming up next year on the show. And then we're going to close it out with my buddy Scott from MEW. But here's the thing, Jonesy. I think that the lack of WWE's ability to surprise the fans, the predictability of the product, I think has become somewhat frustrating. And let me tell you why I say that, and I have a little bit of a different perspective than other people. In the fantasy wrestling group that we run here via the Wrestle Talk podcast, it's called the Fantasy Wrestling Worldwide Chapter. We make picks for every pay-per-view. We make picks for Mondays and Tuesdays. And the people within our group become very proficient in predicting. And if you don't believe me, join us. And you think you're good at calling matches and picking matches, I challenge you to join the FWWC. More on that in the second hour. But we become pretty proficient in making picks. And when you start seeing perfect cards every Monday, every Tuesday, okay, that says to you what? The predictability is at an all-time high. It's almost like you know what's going to happen. And then when something unpredictable happens, okay, then it's kind of sucky. You know, like the low blow championship by Daniel Bryan, which would have been great if Shinsuke Nakamura hadn't done it like 12 times like 2 months before. It's just like, really? So this is what you're going to make things more unpredictable. It's highly, highly frustrating when you tune into the show and you commit 3 hours of your Monday or 2 hours of your Tuesday, and then even more time watching pay-per-views, more time watching NXT, and you feel like you're seeing the same thing over and over again. I'm not necessarily opposed to the matches that happen over and over and over again, but there has to be substance, okay? Seeing Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes over and over and over and over again, okay? Pretty cool. I got no problem with that, but the story has to be there to justify it, okay? But if I have to see Elias versus Bobby Roode over and over and over again, and every week it's almost like they're telling the same story, the story's really not evolving, and then you got silly stuff going on like Bobby Lashley turning around and pointing at his butt. I mean, it's just like, really, dude, come on. Can't nobody stand this stuff? And what's crazy is, like Seth Rollins said, there's so much damn talent in the locker room, bro. There's no reason that you can't do something a little bit different every single week. So that's really the point I want to hit on. And I know Brandon Buck was kind of, tiptoeing around that, but I think that's in essence what he was saying. Now that they've changed things up inside of things and they're bringing in new talent, hopefully we can be surprised a little bit more. Jonesy, you know when was the last time I legitimately marked out during a WWE show? Do you know how long ago that was?
I'm going to say that the last time that you marked out was the debut of James Ellsworth.
Really, bro? Come on, man. You got to be kidding me right now. No, dude. It was not the debut.
Oh, okay. Then I'm going to say the whole Katie Vick thing with Kane.
No, it was. No, dude. The last time I was genuinely excited during a WWE show was when the Hardy Boys showed up at WrestleMania, bro. That was the last time that I could say, wow, crazy, dude. And it's been way too long. That said, guys, we're about 6 minutes away from Dylan Highley. But before we get there, we got 2 more callers to get through. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Wrestle Talk podcast. I believe for the very first time, Kansas Badass #1. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in Bones.
Hey, how you guys doing? Much respect to you guys. Much respect.
What's going on, Bones?
Oh, brother. Getting out there, getting them, jobs, putting in my work and stuff for all these shows I got coming up.
Well, Bones, we know you've been a very, very busy guy. You decided to call in on the show, and if you listen ever, here on the Wrestle Talk podcast, we do not have a problem when asking the difficult questions. So let me get right into it, okay? And it's just 2 of them, okay? Number 1.
Hey, I have no problem.
That's fine, and I expect that you'll give us an honest answer. Now, we are a little bit limited on time because we do have Dylan Highley coming on here in just a few minutes, okay? And we can expand upon this in the future when we have you on as an official guest. But for now, let me ask you this. Number 1, on a fairly regular basis, I have seen prominent wrestlers from throughout the Midwest use you and the things you say and do as a butt of jokes. Okay, I'm not going to name any names out of respect for everybody involved, and I'm sure that if you want to name names, you can. But my thing is, Bones, what is your reaction to those people who seem to think that you're nothing but a joke?
Well, my reaction to those people is that, everybody has their own opinion. I mean, like I said, time and time again, I do this for the fans. That's why I do this. That's why I've done this for so many years. And people can criticize and say whatever they want about how I wrestle, how I present myself in the ring, the whole 9 yards. That's their own right. I'm not going to let that faze me one bit. I'm going to keep doing what I love to do, and that is entertaining the fans.
Okay, and you know what, Bones? I'm grateful for that, and I think that that's what the fans love about you, man, that you've never let anybody's comments, people's opinions of you, ever deter you from what you love to do, and that is entertaining the audience, man. Nothing but respect to you from that perspective. Last question for you, Bones. Recently, you were involved in a bit of a beef, or I should say you are still involved in the middle of a beef with a man named Flexy, a.k.a. Flex Reed, okay? And I know you guys are building to something pretty special in the early spring, but in this back and forth, there was a gentleman, I'm just going to use his first name, by the name of Tyler, who posted something that I would just say is a little distasteful, okay? And if for those that are wondering, well, what do you mean by that, Night Owl? What do you mean by distasteful? He posted something under one of your videos that you directed Flex Reed. He posted like blackface. He since apologized, and his apology seemed very sincere. My question to you is, what was your initial reaction when one of your supporters posted that picture of blackface under one of your videos and directed it at Flex Reed?
Well, if you didn't see Flex Reed's post of it, because he put it on blast.
He did.
On his page. He did.
He was upset.
If you look directly underneath his comment, I commented automatically right after.
Okay.
I was just as shocked as he was. I was just as appalled as he was when I seen that. Because, as you know me personally. You've met me many, many times.
I have.
I am completely against racism, any symbols of racism, or any of that. And that is one picture that is a symbol of racism, period. It's from the 1930s. They would not hire a black man to play in plays. So they would put white people in black makeup to play the black parts.
Right.
And I mean, that's just racist beyond belief.
Correct. And so you obviously objected to that. The gentleman responsible has since apologized. Yeah. My question is, I know you and Flex Reed probably saw eye to eye concerning that situation, but does that change your disdain and your dislike for Flex Reed, and is the match still on?
Oh, yes. The match is still on. It's still signed. Like I said before in a few of my last videos, January 12th, we're doing the Casey King Memorial Cup for Casey King that we lost way too early. And we're doing this show for his benefit, to show respect for him.
Right.
My career basically is on the line. Basically, a contract is on the line for my match at this show. If I win this match, my one-on match with, they finally named who I'm facing, which I don't know if you got that or not. His name is the Phantom.
Nope, that's breaking news here.
Okay, well, you heard it first, brother. I am facing the Phantom, and if I win, I actually will get a match to face Flex Reed one-on-one sometime this year.
Well, you know what? That's very, very exciting, Bones. But I will say this, man. Be very, very careful. Flex Reed is a very dangerous man. He's held multiple championships in the world of pro wrestling, and I know he's going to stop at nothing to get the old 1, 2, 3 on the #1 badass in Kansas, Bones.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not, disrespecting the man at all. I know he's a multi-time champion. I am ready for him, period, when we face each other, because it's inevitable what's going to happen on January 12th. This person, whoever I'm facing, as much as Flex Reed has taunted me and everything else, I'm going to take all this anger and frustration out on this person I'm facing January 12th. I am not going to hold back, period. So people are going to want to be in La Crosse, Kansas to see this, because this is going to be a sight of bones that no one has ever seen before.
Well, there you go. And on that note, Bones, we'll go ahead and let you go, man. And I apologize for cutting you off there. But we do have to move on to Dylan Highley. We are already 5 minutes into Dylan Highley's time. Scott, I see you on hold, brother. I apologize. We went a little bit long with the first two callers. If you want to hang in there, we'll make sure we make some room for you in the second hour. If not, feel free to call back next week. You know, nothing but love to you, Brandon Gomez, Mike, Tomas, everybody else out there at MEW. I'm looking forward to working with you guys towards the end of January. That said, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to bring on our first featured guest of the evening. This gentleman is not only extremely talented and working for one of the most prestigious companies to ever exist in the Midwest, he's also highly inspirational. Intern Timmy, why don't you go ahead and cue up that music for the very first visit to the Wrestle Talk podcast by our friend, Dylan Highley.
Hold on, sir.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's got me all fired up hearing that music.
Right?
I'm honored to be on the show.
Well,
We are definitely honored to have you on the show. Renee, do you want to start it off? Or you want me to start it off?
well, let me say hello, and then I'll let you go ahead and kick off the questions. Dylan, I wanted to say, first off, thank you so much for making time for us. I know this is a very, very busy time of the year for you. I know you've got a lot of tremendous things going on over at World League Wrestling.
I've been looking forward to this for a while.
What was that? I'm sorry?
I've been looking forward to this for a long while. I'm glad you guys had me on.
No, awesome, man. Well, thank you, and it's definitely an honor from this way going towards your direction as well. I just wanted to say hello, and again, thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and let Joe take the lead on this one, and I'll catch you on the backside.
Okay.
Jonesy?
Absolutely. Like I said, once again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on to the show. I guess that the first question I need to ask is, what got you involved in professional wrestling? Like, how did you get involved in it?
So for me, not to get all mushy and emotional here, but start from the beginning, I was diagnosed with a bone disease called osteogenesis imperfecta. Basically, if I were to fall from a high distance, if I fall off a counter or something like that, I would break bones very easily. So when I was a kid, I've broken about 32 bones when I came out of my mom's stomach, and I've broken about over 80 bones in my life, and I've had over 10 surgeries. And so what got me into pro wrestling was really, I couldn't go outside and do what all the other kids were doing and get on the monkey bars with them and do all that other stuff. I was always in cast and on a pallet. So it was either play video games, play board games, or watch TV. And my grandfather, my Uncle Adam, he actually had a bunch of wrestling videos, and they were giving them all to my mom to give me something to do. Well, I remember watching Sting Unmasked and watching Vader's match with him in the Four Corners match, and watching guys like Harley Race and Ric Flair, and I was hooked. Sting was my favorite guy. And it was something that was bigger than myself that I could, like, have a goal in mind to look forward to. And I would sit there and I would play around with it and mute the sound on the VCR, and because back then it was VCR, and play around with the sound, mute the sound, and just announce like JR and announce like Tony Schiavone, and I would practice. And then when I got older, my love for wrestling just grew and grew and grew and grew to where I used to write scripts on my free time. I used to write storylines. I used to just kind of imagine myself maybe one day being in that spot. That was when I was 5 years old. Fast forward 20 years later, and yeah, so that's what got me started into pro wrestling.
Awesome. Okay, and that is definitely a inspiring story. You know, somebody that that loves professional wrestling. You know, and I do the same thing. I'll put on a WWE video game or something, and I'll let the computer play, and I'll just do my own commentary. So I do that today. I guess my second question is, how did you get involved in WLW?
So I'll go back to when I was in high school and I started announcing. This was brand new. I was an announcer in high school. We always used to film the games, every single game that we had, volleyball, football, soccer, baseball. We filmed them all, but they were silent. They only had sound when the announcers would go over the rosters or sideline interviews would be done. So that was always the only time you heard sound. And we were at the Edward Jones Dome doing Belleville West versus O'Fallon, Illinois High School. And I was talking to my teacher and I said, how about we do play-by-play during these games, like every week, and get all dressed up and do our homework and get ready and be professional. And she goes, well, I can't find anybody that could do that. I can't trust anybody to talk for 3 hours. I go, all I do is talk. Let me do it. So I had no idea that I would like it or if I would, be good at it. I knew I was passionate about it, but I didn't know, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. But I got in there. It was a little rough the first 10 minutes of the pre-show, and then I got done with the whole thing. I just ran through it with a guy that has never called anything before either, and I was the play-by-play guy. And she asked me at the end, she goes, how did you feel? Because that was awesome. And I go, honestly, it's the most natural thing I've ever done. And that was it. After that, I used to bring packets of papers and get, my homework done, like actually bring paper about the stats and do my homework on the side, and also get dressed up for the part, wore button-up shirts, and that carried on through college. I had my own radio show called, it was Bring It to the Mat. Well, we had a couple different shows. We had like 3 different podcasts. But we did shows in college, and I was just so passionate about wrestling. I was always calling sports, but never wrestling. And I was working my job at Charter, and I was on break. And I've been applying to these local promotions and Florida and WWE and all the way back, dude. I've been applying for over 6 years. I've been applying for these places since I got out of high school. And then I stopped applying because I was just like, well, I guess they'll get back to me whenever they decide to. 5 days a week, 6 years is a long time. And, I was about to give up, not going to lie, and I'm not one that does that. Well, I stopped doing that and started leaving voicemails. And I guess I just annoyed Leland so much with my voicemails that he called me up on my break one day at my job. I was on break, and I got that call, and I'm like, I didn't recognize the number. And he goes, hey, this is, my name's Dylan. He goes, this is Leland Race calling for Dylan Highley. Is he here? I go, dude, somebody's playing a prank on me. I didn't, I'm like, Harley Race's on my phone. There's no way. And he said, no, this is, I got your voicemails, and basically you told your whole life story on voicemail. And he said, he was talking to me about the job and how he's looking for somebody to help him out. And I, not getting too emotional here, but I was crying during that call. And because that's what I've wanted to do since I was 5. And so I told him, I go, I'll do anything you need me to do. I'll run papers around, help you and Harley out, whatever you need me to do, grunt work wise, I'll do it to get my foot in the door. And no payment, no nothing. I just want to get involved. And he said, that's great and all, but I kind of need you to be a commentator because we're going on TV in spring. And that was like, I still can't believe I'm getting chills right now just talking about it. So I literally, it blew my mind. I was frozen. He's like, are you still there on the call? And yeah, and that's where it all started. And we were just planning. We weren't even on TV yet. We were just kind of talking about it, doing some voiceovers. Me and my partner at the time, Dane Horst, just kind of going over some voiceovers and kind of learning the ropes. And it's funny, I felt like I had a great grasp on announcing every other sport that I've ever done. But you don't know how hard it is to call wrestling until you do it. I was struggling the first couple events that we did. it's a different ballgame because there's not a story right in front of you per se. Like what we do, our formula, CT goes over everything. He goes over the matches each and every week. And then I have to paint the picture of the storyline. And even if there isn't a story there, I have to come up with something for the audience that maybe doesn't know our product, maybe hasn't seen our product, and they're brand new to World League Wrestling. Maybe they're all the way in Columbia and they can't get to Troy, Missouri to be at our show. So, you know, and I have to kind of paint the picture of what they're about to witness on TV, even if there's not one there, you know. But man, there's always usually a story there because we do a great job at World League Wrestling of having great storylines. Harley Race has that motto, that old school mentality of telling good stories in the ring. You don't have to have a microphone every time to tell a story. And that's kind of the thing that WWE's gotten into a lot. The only problem I really have with it is, you know, they tell a lot of these stories, but they tell them on a microphone. Even if you can't talk, they give you a microphone. And it's just like, it's a wasted segment. And, you know, you could have been using on these other guys. People don't realize you could tell the best stories in the ring. And yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Renee, why don't you go ahead and jump on in here because I don't want to take up all of your time with Dylan. So why don't you go ahead and answer whatever question that you have, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate it. And let me tell you, man, I'm literally chomping at the bit over here, man, because I'm listening to Dylan, and if you don't mind, I want to just provide a little bit more background for those who are watching. And by the way, thank you everybody who's live right now on the Facebook live feed. We've got a consistent amount of people on. I'm pleasantly surprised to see this many folks on. We appreciate your guys' support. So Dylan, not only do you suffer from this illness that makes your bones extremely fragile, you're also, as far as stature, you're actually a fairly small individual, which I think also makes things a little bit difficult for you. But at the same time, I think that the motivation that you have found to continue to pursue your dream, I mean, there's just so many people, and as a manager for a fairly large company, I see a lot of people with a victim mentality, a lot of people who allow their circumstances to dictate their success. And listen, I come from a family of poverty. I come from a second world country myself. And so I know what it's like to come up with a disadvantage. Fortunately for me, none of those disadvantages are physical. I can go out and run. I can do this. I can do that. I'll be out of breath fairly quickly because your boy's a little rotund, okay? But nothing near what it is that somebody like you deals with, and your persistency is quite impressive. And that persistency has not only landed you a job at WLW. Through that job, you in essence have been able, I should say, to live out the fantasy of many of the members of the Wrestle Talk family. And when I say that, I mean you've had a chance to rub elbows with The Rock, Rey Mysterio Jr., the $1 Million Man, Sergeant Slaughter, Arn Anderson, the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, Ted DiBiase, Samoa Joe, and I can keep going and going and going. Man, I just got to ask you right off the bat, dude, how incredible has it been to have those experiences? And do you have a story you could share with us specifically about those encounters that you've had with many, many WWE and wrestling Hall of Famers?
Yeah, this whole journey, this whole ride has been unreal. The fact that I can go into my day job, and say that, you know, I got to consult with my boss, Harley, you know, it's just, I mean, it's surreal, man. The fact that I'm working for the Race family, man, I'm still getting choked up thinking about it, and it's been 2 years. I met one of the guys you didn't mention there that I don't know if I included, but I met Sting, and that was my end-all, be-all to me. I had no words to say. I'm a guy that talks a lot, and I had no words when I got up to Sting. I just tried not to cry is all I thought in my head. And wrestling for me was not just a thing on TV. It wasn't just something that was just a sport. For me personally, wrestling kept me alive, because going through the disease and going through all that stuff, I have a curve back to where my spine starts at my heart it comes out at my back. They didn't think I was going to be able to breathe on my own or live. I didn't hold my own head up until I was about 4 years old. And I taught myself how to walk at age 15 with the help and support of my family. So
wait a minute.
I didn't
You did not learn you did not learn how to walk until you were 15 years old?
Yep. I knew at a young age
Wow.
that if I didn't learn how to just walk a little bit, just enough to get from my bathroom to my kitchen, or get from wherever I need to go, I realized that I wouldn't make it very long. And I realized that to be a commentator and to do the drive, because it's a drive, man. I work 40-hour weeks at Spectrum all week, and I'm always tired. And you go to the show on Saturday. I work sound for every live event. You go to the studio, you announce, you put, you know what I mean? It's a 7-day-a-week job. And I spend my whole time at Spectrum, and I love my job there, but I spend my whole time at Spectrum looking forward to my weekend job, for being completely honest. And for me, the best story I can give you about meeting these guys was when in 2002, when I finally got my Make-A-Wish, and I got to meet The Rock. I got chosen for Make-A-Wish, and I got to go to North Carolina. Spent 7 days, get driven around in a limo everywhere I went. And that was the greatest trip I've ever taken. It was with my mom and my grandma, and we had a blast. And got to meet The Rock. And he was supposed to do just a basic 4-minute handshake and say, thank you for coming. Well, ended up being 45 minutes with me. And so, I mean, that was surreal. And I gave him. So
what you're telling us is that you got to go one-on-one with the great one? Wow.
With the great one, yeah.
Jonesy, let me jump in here. Jonesy.
That was surreal, too. That was just.
Jonesy, I got to know how you feel about this. My partner, Joe, is a huge Rock fan. Jonesy, I want to know exactly how you feel about this.
I am,
got him! I'm just kidding, Joe. I'm just kidding, Joe. Go ahead, bro. I had to, bro. I got that one at the tip of my fingers. I couldn't help myself.
He's so mean to you, man.
I am definitely kind of jealous because the Rock is one of my favorite wrestlers, and being able to meet him and spend 45 minutes with him, with a guy that's like larger than life, had to be completely amazing.
Dude.
Oh, it was. I couldn't believe it. I was speechless. And like my mom had to literally step in and say, hey, did you want to ask him this? Did you want to ask him that? Because I had all these ideas of what I was going to talk about. And then I got up to him and I just blanked out. Like I just completely forgot everything I was going to say. And I was starstruck. And it was the same with Sting. But yeah, this journey, man, this year will be my fourth year that I'm going to go to WrestleMania. I went to my first one in Dallas, and then Orlando, when you're talking about the Hardys returning, I was there for that.
Woo!
Dude, my seat was shaking. I'm in my wheelchair, and it was shaking how loud it was. It was surreal, man. It was unbelievable. That was probably the best Mania I've ever been to, was that Orlando one. And to meet some of these guys at Access and to do all that was just unbelievable.
Well, you know what, man? I can hear the excitement in your voice. And we love to have a good time here on the show. We love to have guys on that have a great sense of humor, which I'm sure you do. But I want to get serious for a moment because I know a little bit earlier you said that, you work at Charter or Spectrum, whichever it was. And you said, hey, I spend all my days looking forward to it. From my research, from what I've heard is that you don't necessarily spend all your time looking forward to WW. From what I've heard, you spend most of your time scrolling through Tinder. Dylan, I'm just teasing, man.
I'm going to meet a taller woman who's going to reach the light switches,
Jeez Louise, this man is going in on himself. Are you serious right now?
So, oh yeah, I got all these dates solid, man.
That's awesome, bro. See, when I was talking to Skywalker, which is Skywalker is our nickname for Luke. I was like, look, man. I said, whenever you help us book somebody on the show, there's two things that they gotta know. Number one, Joe's the good-looking one, not me. That's my co-host. And we like to have a lot of fun here on the show, man, because when people tune into us, when people watch WOW or when they turn on WWE or whatever it may be, it's somewhat of an escape from reality. And what we like to do is have a lot of fun. And I've had an opportunity to hear you call a few matches in your time working on My Zoo TV alongside CT Harrison. I'm curious, man, since you started calling the action, and I know this is going to be very, very hard, do you have a wrestler like Kareem Brigante, for example, or a particular match that you can go back to and say, man, you know what? When I was calling that match, I can't remember ever having more fun, standing or sitting behind the microphone, man. Is there any chance that you might have a story like that you might be able to share with us, Dylan?
Well, we had a lot of good matches. I mean, we've had, Rex finally getting his shot against, John Webb. We had some really good matches. We had also, my first match was probably my favorite one, the one that I called first, even though I didn't think was my best one when I listened back to it. I made a lot of mistakes when I listened back to it. I'm my own worst critic. Like, I'm always hard on myself because this is what I want to do for life. But, so, like, for me, I used to watch Scott Steiner every single time on WCW. I was a WCW guy. And calling the tag team match that we had Scott Steiner at Night of Champions 3 last year.
Wow.
And we also have Night of Champions 4 coming up on March 9th. You definitely get your tickets. It's going to be an awesome show. Just keying in to mention this here, we got Leland Race versus Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis is coming in to World League Wrestling to do the Night of Champions show.
Wow.
This is huge because that's the title, the NWA World title. That's the title that Harley held so many times. That's the title that his son is gonna fight for. And for Leland personally, I know the guy. I know this is personally huge for him, and it's huge for World League Wrestling. And for Leland to be in that kind of a match, a title that his father held, that's got to be surreal. He's been everywhere. He's been in Japan. He's been everywhere in America, and for him to go for that title, you definitely want to be there for that, for Night of Champions 4. You don't want to miss that one. But my best match, my favorite match calling was the Scott Steiner Night of Champions 3 because the name Scott Steiner, and I'm calling a guy like that match. You know what I mean? It doesn't get much better than that. I'm saying Scott Steiner's name on TV. You know what I mean? For me, that's just, yeah. Well, that's why I used to watch when I was 5 and got into wrestling.
Well, and I totally hear you on that. I totally hear you on that, Dylan. And I think I can relate to you on a certain level. I had the distinct privilege. Shout out to Brian Kelly from MWR, by the way, who sent you a big shout out, Dylan. Brian. And then also Mike Gendusa, also sending a lot of love to our boy Dylan tonight. So, hey, man, the fans are all over the place, man. They got nothing but love for you, bro. Mike's the man, too. But listen, so my second ever commentary gig for Kansas City Extreme Wrestling, again, totally like out of the blue. The owner was like, hey, you have a fairly successful podcast. We like what you do. You're a lot of fun. You bring a lot of energy. We want you to come through and do this thing with us. The first show was great, but it was just a lot of local guys. Well, come to find out, the second ever commentary gig that I had, I got to call a match with none other than legendary tag team wrestler, Ricky Morton. It was the second show I ever did, and I was like, I may never do anything cooler than this the rest of my wrestling career. And it stuck with me forever. And now it's pretty cool. You get to put that on your resume. Yeah, I've called a Ricky Morton match or whatever. But dude, I know the feeling, and I can only imagine what it felt like for you to be a fan of a guy like Steiner, and then to get to call the action, dude, right there, ringside, best seat in the house. Super jealous, man. That's awesome.
That's exactly what it is. Just I'm a fan, man. I'm a huge fan. I kept the same dream and the same goal in my mind since I was 5 years old, and 6 years of applying. I did not quit on it. The ups and downs, times with my disease got rough, ups and downs. And thing is I am trying to do as much with my career as I can. With my illness, you just don't know what's gonna, you know what I mean? I don't want to get depressing, but you don't know what's gonna happen. So I'm trying to do as much with this as I possibly can, while I can still move around really well, still in great shape. So you know what I mean? And for me personally, that Steiner match was just the verification that I made it, kind of, to where I'm not all the way where I want to be, but I'm in the business now, and I'm doing what I love to do. And one of the boys, and that's the cool thing, and that's the thing about World League Wrestling is they run it like a family. Everybody in that locker room, I look forward to going in the locker room just before the show and talking with the guys, and I'm in my wheelchair running sound, and I turn around and I see all the guys talking and conversating and all this stuff, and it makes you watch wrestling from a different perspective. I always watched it as the guys that you saw on TV, these larger than life guys. Well, now when I watch wrestling, when I watch these guys go out there, I see what they give. And all you World League Wrestling fans, I want you to know how much these guys give. We have guys that go from North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa. They sleep on sleeping bags in the back room sometimes if they're trying to save. I mean, these guys literally live and breathe what they put out there. And, they got full-time jobs, some of these guys. So they get hurt on a Saturday. They got to go into work on Monday. You know what I mean? And it's just, it makes you watch wrestling different, but in a better way, because you appreciate, and that's why it makes me so angry when I see people not respecting it as a sport, because I see what these guys give, and I see that the passion that they have. And they may not be making millions and millions of dollars, but they still go out there every single night and give everything they have with bruises on their backs, with kendo sticks to their side, and they still go out there and put on a show because the crowd's expecting it.
Well, there's no doubt about that. And you know what? Just to name drop a little bit, I've had the experience of rubbing, shoulders with some of the WLW elite. Obviously, Rex, I booked on a show a while back for GWF here in Kansas City. Leland Race is a former guest of the show. Several WLW alumni, such as Mark Sterling, Trevor Murdoch, Lucy Mendez have all been on the show. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the drop that you're going to hear after our break, that drop, I actually got it at a WLW show. And then obviously, Jack Gamble, Kareem Brigante, Monica Pacetti, who were on the show here just a couple of weeks ago. Brian Thompson, who's now running RCW, is a normal, somebody that you're going to see at pretty much every WLW show, at least in the past years. And then of course, Brian Kelly and all the wonderful people. You guys got a really, really special thing going on there. And I know you're not one to gloat, so I'll go ahead and do it for you, Dylan. For those who don't know, WLW is on every single Saturday on my Mizzou TV at 6 p.m. And by the way, it has quickly become one of the highest rated programs on the network. And you know what, Dylan? I think you've got at least a little bit you got to rub a little dirt off your shoulders, because you are the voice, one of the two voices on my Mizzou TV for WLW. So some of that success has to be attributed to you. So congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. And I got to give a lot of the credit to C.T. Harrison, man. He doesn't just announce with me. This guy has put a lot of his own money from his business, his own personal funds, to get what we need for this show. He's bought cameras for this show. He does all the video shots during the live shows as well, and makes it look really, really good. I mean, he gets great camera angles. The guy's been doing this for so many decades now. He's been doing it for a long time as far as video editing and putting the stuff together. put a lot of money, a lot of finances in this, and he's made it look like from where we started to where we are now, he's got a professional looking product out there. You know, I am as pasty white as they come, and he makes me look tan. You know what I mean? And you know, and the simple fact, you know, that he makes me the same height as him. That's a pretty impressive thing too. On camera, I look the same height.
Awesome.
So, but yeah, he does a lot, man. He does way more than I do for this show, and you know, he's already kind of. We didn't have roles when we got into this. We didn't have we just knew we were passionate about what we were putting out there, and we knew we wanted to make WLW what it should be. We know the guys that we have, we know the talent we have, and I live, sleep, eat, and breathe this company since I've been on it. Whether you love me or you hate me, I live, sleep, eat, and breathe this business, and I've been all in since the get-go, and I always praise and give thanks to Leland for giving me the opportunity to do what I love. But, you know, me and CT have gotten leaps and bounds better from where we started. Each and every week is a better show, better product. And I think now we go in there, we do some editing and we're done. Like we get in and out of the studios fast because it's just become quick and easy for us now to where we have a routine now that we can do. And I did not, going back to what I was saying about our roles, I did not think that we don't really have a play-by-play kind of guy. We just kind of go with our strengths and our weaknesses. He's really good at getting across what's going to be on tonight's program, and he does it with a lot of excitement. And that's what he does. I'm better at being creative and coming up with the stories for every single show and bringing it back to recapping what you saw a couple weeks ago that led into that match, and kind of painting the picture with just my passion and how much I love this business, and just knowing the guys personally, and the story that they want to tell out there. So, I mean, it's kind of turned into its own thing. I do a lot of the talking, but that's because once I get started talking, I don't stop. You know?
Well, no worries. Well, I guess we booked the right guy, and I'll tell you what, man, that excitement, it definitely just comes through, and in your attitude, it comes through in your demeanor, it comes through even through a phone interview like what we're doing here on the Wrestle Talk podcast tonight. That said, Dylan, we did want to have a little bit more fun with you. Usually around this time, we get into a segment that we call the Shoot and Shout segment. And it's always for fun. And we give each caller, and ourselves included, 30 to 45 seconds to go through a little bit of a therapeutic session. Anything out there, wrestling related or not, that may be frustrating you, this is the time to vent. You unload, you leave it here on the Wrestle Talk podcast, and you walk out of it a better man. Would you be interested in joining us in tonight's edition of the Shoot and Shout segment?
All right, sounds good.
Let's do it. Intern Timmy, hit the music. Let's get into tonight's edition of the Shoot and Shout segment.
It's just one of those days where you don't want to wake up. Everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you want to justify. If someone's head off, you don't do any contact. And if you win, you win. You like a long contract.
All right, Jonesy, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off tonight, and I'll let you guys close it out, man, because mine is pretty simple, and I want to go in on the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community. Listen, boneheads, the guys and girls who entertain you on television, they are regular people just like you and me. So when the company decides to give them Christmas off so that they can be with their families and wake up Christmas morning with their kids, because yes, some of those superstars are moms and dads, don't bitch about it. Oh, it's pre-recorded. I can't stand this. WWE doesn't give a damn about the fans. Yes, they do. That's why these guys and girls are on the road 300 days a year to entertain your monkey ass. So for 1 week a year, when they decide to let their talent pre-record a show, which, by the way, they work double on Monday and Tuesday to record next week's SmackDown and Raw. I don't want to hear you bitching about it. Because you know what? These guys and girls deserve to be at home with their families just as much as you do and as I do. And I guarantee that every single last one of you dirty, stinking ratas would be crying and complaining if your boss called you and told you you had to work Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Okay? So don't give me that crap. I don't want to hear it. Shut your mouths and appreciate the fact that these guys are willing to not only put their family lives on hold, but also risk their bodies every single week to entertain you for $15 or $9.99 or whatever the hell it is you pay when you watch wrestling. Okay? I'm sick and